Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Broken Dice, bringing you turn 2 of my Rome in Iberian campaign battle against the Leitani tribes and their allies. This is probably one of the last battles I'll be doing in this series for right now, and then later on this year we'll pick this right back up and continue the struggle. But right now it's the Roman conquest of Iberian is in the balance here. It's not going well altogether. So let's see if the Romans can turn the tide here in turn 2 of this battle. Iberian orders phase. All right, talked about this in the last turn of this game, that in turn 1 for the Iberians, their left failed to move. They failed a division order to advance. No big deal at first. Then on the Roman part of turn 1, the Roman right facing them passed their order by 3 and advanced very far across the table. Well, this has caused kind of a disjointed battle line. So here at the start of turn 2 for the Iberians, they have a tactical decision to be made. And again, since I'm using solo wargaming, and so I need to come up with a way to take my own prejudice out of it. I'm not doing a hands-on game. To me would be like problem solving, where I'm giving myself some difficult task with limited resources against a changing environment sort of thing to play against. Since I'm doing more of like a view from above, where I'm observing the game and just reporting on what I see, I had to come up with a dice roll for this. So there are 3 basic sort of options for the Iberians here. They could turn the whole division to the left and advance on the Romans that have extended their line. You can look through several historical examples of this very sort of disjointed battle line and the way it's played out. Several examples exist. They could do an advance forward into the Romans to their front with the whole division, or they could do a combination where they send one unit to charge the Roman right in the flank, and the rest of the units charge forward. Well, I had to roll a dice, so I created a die 3 roll. 1 and 2, the whole division goes left. 3 and 4, the whole division goes forward. 5 and 6, 1 unit goes to the left, and the rest go forward. Well, as you can see from these arrows, I rolled a 5, which the only unit that could see the flank of the Roman right division was this very back unit of Scutari. So they had to pass an individual order to do this. And I thought to myself, well, this is going to be risky, because this could turn this whole thing against the Iberians. Could turn this whole game on its ear, where if he fails that individual order, even with a re-roll, it's possible, and then they're stuck with no movement in front of these allies, and that gives the Roman right freedom, and it could be quite disastrous for the Iberians. But they passed the individual order, and then he gave a division order to those that were left to charge forward into combat with the Romans. Well, a couple of things happened, and we'll look into that right now. Okay, the first thing that happened was that rear unit of Scutari, when they turned around to attack the elephant, they had to go through the center of the unit that was in front of them, which causes a test for disorder. The unit that they were moving through passed their order and so they were able to now be part of that division order to advance. See, that could have been something else that could have happened, was if they would have failed and become disordered, I don't think they would have been able to advance with the division order. No, they wouldn't, because they would have been disordered. You can't give disordered units orders. So, yeah, they wouldn't have been able to advance. So, giving them that order, now they were able to advance. As you can see, the war elephant is now in combat with the Scutari, and the skirmishers that were in front of the Celt-Iberians, the slingers for the Romans, they failed a evade order and were caught by the charging Celt-Iberians and run down on their way to make contact with the rest of them. So this unit to the right of the screen, those slingers, yeah, they got run down. So the cavalry here, you can see they're charging forward into the Illyrians. Here we have a very blurry photo of the combat of the Celt-Iberians and another unit of Illyrian allies. Here we have the combat between the Scutari and the Roman cohort. And here we have the combat of the cavalry and the Illyrians. And this is the same Illyrian unit that was held off table by the Roman commander, came on the table, defeated the other unit of Iberian cavalry. Now is in turn has got to face one more challenge of Iberian cavalry. Here we see the Iberian left. They all passed a division order, and so they're all advancing to engage in skirmishing with the advancing Romans, which is really, of all the things that could happen here, this is something that is more historically true to form. This is kind of the way that they would have done it in this rough sort of mountain terrain. Here you can see their final positions. Iberian shooting phase. Since no shooting is on the Iberian right, we'll see with the Iberian left. And the Catrate fire on these slingers to the front of the Roman cohort. They rolled a 6, doing 1 point of damage. The slingers needed to test for break. They failed their break. They gave ground and became disordered. The other units threw their spears at this Roman cohort and did a couple of points of damage to them. Iberian combat phase, which is basically everything on the other side. Here we have a combat between the Illyrians and the the cavalry. Let me get the right combat here. I won. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is one where, yeah. The Illyrians and these Celt-Iberians, they fight. And the Celt-Iberians win the combat, not by much. But I rolled a 6 for the Illyrian break test. This is the one where you can either give ground or you can either retreat in good order or remain where you are disordered. Now, the problem in having a tabletop game without infinite space is that in this situation, the Celt-Iberians are so far across the table so quickly that the Romans, if they give any ground at all, which is basically 6 inches, one movement, they'll be off the table. And I think it's kind of unfair for, there not to be an option. So again, in this situation, just like in I think I did this in the last game, or even in the last turn, I think it was, that I roll a dice. It's basically evens and odds, or 4, 5, and 6, they do one thing, 1, 2, and 3, they do the other thing. And in this, you have the two options, either retreat in good order or hold your ground disordered. So it's 50-50. I roll a dice, and in this combat here, another close-up of the combat. I like close-up photos. They lose the combat, but they become disordered. They hold their ground, but they're disordered, which I thought, you know, if you have two options, and I have to, you know, like I've always said, if I'm doing this from, like, in the way I see it as a view from above in solo wargaming, I want to take my personal desires out of it and just let the dice decide what's going on. And so I become more like an observer and a reporter of the game as opposed to a hands-on participant. This unit now of Illyrians has decided to hold its ground, but now they are disordered. We go to the center combat between the Romans and the Scutari. Close-up of the combat. Another close-up of the combat. Grim determination on that guy, and that Scutari coming towards the Romans. Here we have a close-up of the cavalry charging in against the other Illyrian unit. Another close-up. Now, the cavalry did a tremendous amount of damage to this Illyrian unit. The dice rolling was like off the charts. They did 6 damage right off the front. And that, well, basically they've only got the Illyrians are like light infantry. They're formed light infantry, but they have the ability to go into open order, but they only got a 6 morale, so they took 6 damage. And so I rolled a 6 again, because I think I rolled, they lost, oh yeah, they did 1 point of damage against them, so they lost it by 5. They lost the combat by 5, rolled an 11, which created a 6. Again, the number 6. I don't know why this keeps happening. So I roll a dice again. 1, 2, 3, they stay. 4, 5, and 6, they give ground. Now, on this side, this is a little bit kind of more deceptive where they are. They're a little bit more forward, so they could actually have the option to give ground or to retreat in good order. So I had to roll the dice, and they retreated in good order. So now, so as you look at the combat on the right between the cavalry and those Iberians, those Illyrians, I should say, Illyrians, Iberians, oh my goodness. So the Illyrians are the ones in the top right corner that are shaken. And they have been pushed back to this point, because remember, they had come on the table kind of midway up. And so they had plenty of room behind them to fall back on. And so this is where they were, this is their end point. This is where they've been pushed back to. Okay. Here we have the combat between the charging Scutari and the war elephant. The Scutari were able to do 3 points of damage on the war elephant, and the war elephant did like a point of damage back. And so they did a break test, and they held their ground in good order. The war elephant did. Let's go to the Roman orders phase and shooting phase. And the reason I lumped this together, because the only shooting for the Romans were the horse archers, and again, they did absolutely nothing. Of course, they're firing at other skirmishers, so that's kind of to be expected, but nothing happened. As you can see, they're up in the top right corner. Nothing's going on up there. And so we go to the orders phase, and this is the Roman general, okay? So I ordered, I thought this is the time. They've got all these guys in front of them. Let's go get them, right? Charge to the front. Nope, not going to happen. Failed the order once, did a reroll, failed the division order again. So there they sit. I am just, they were all gung-ho, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe we don't want to go up into those rocks and hills with those guys throwing pointy sticks at us. All right, combat phase, which brings us back over to the Roman left. Here we look down the Roman left. Here again, we look at the combat. Another close-up of the combat. Cavalry combat. Kind of looking down upon the cavalry combat. Oh, nothing. I just showed that photo. I should have edited that out. A couple more. All right. Now let's go back over here. Let's get into this combat thing here. This is a big one. This is ongoing. This is where with this disordered unit, now you got light infantry, they're disordered and basically fighting a medium infantry unit. So yeah, it's not good for them. Here's another close-up. Another close-up. Oh, now I got this photo a little bit out of order, but this is the cavalry fighting the Illyrians on the other side. So not only are they shaken, they have now become disordered. They held their ground. Okay? They held their ground. They took a test. I ran. I rolled like a 12 for them. And it was like, are you kidding me? And there they go. They're not only are they shaken, they're disordered, and they pass their test. It's like, well, they're not giving up against those cavalry guys. And here we have the combat between the cohort and the Scutari. Scutari didn't last very long. They charged in, did a couple of points of damage, but that cohort, by the way, which is a recruit level cohort, just smoked them. It just was not, they didn't even come sniff passing the break test. It was awful. It was just like, boom, you're done. Nice to see you. Take your toys and go home. All right, you see they're all gone. Another view of the victorious Romans. Here we are back on the other side, the other flank. Iberians against the Illyrians. Again, we have this disordered unit. Now they have taken enough, they have become shaken, and they failed their break test. So we have the Roman cohort, they destroyed the Scutari. We have the Iberians, they have destroyed the Illyrians. So these two units now are unengaged, and the Iberian cavalry on the other end is locked in combat with the Illyrians. So these two units turn to face each other due to proximity. The Iberian general moves to join the Iberians because it seems like on this flank, this next turn, turn 3, this combat is going to be significant. Here we have the combat with the war elephant and the Iberians. You can see the one damaged by the elephant in the Iberian turn of combat. And in this turn of combat, they did a point of damage each, and it was a draw. And that brings us to the end of the game, end of the turn. Interesting, there were points at which I thought things could just go completely awry and fall completely apart for either side. But it never really did. Nothing materialized too dramatically. But it'll be very important to see who comes out on top on that, the Roman left and the Iberian right. So we're having that kind of wheeling effect in the game where one side's pushing, the other side's pushing, and they're like wheeling around almost to change positions, you can see. And again, historically, that happened many times where both armies' right were victorious and began to swing like a wheel going counterclockwise to change the position of the battlefield. Um, if you like this sort of thing, give me a thumbs up, give me a share, give me a like, and all that other kind of gobbledygook. Uh, Leave a comment down below if you like this sort of thing. Ask me why I'm doing what I'm doing, you know, how I'm going to proceed, why I do it this way. I don't know. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. If you like this sort of thing, subscribe. If you don't, I understand that. It's not everybody's cup of tea. I mean, we're a pretty small enough community anyway, and then you start cutting out solo war gamers out of that community, and it even gets much, much smaller. So I appreciate everybody that does follow along with this. Again, if you got any questions about why I do it or what kind of method I'm using for different things, again, I can't stress enough how I like Hail Caesar. I like the rule set. I like big battle games. And it fits very well into solo wargaming. It's has enough flexibility to allow you to do that. So everybody stay safe, stay well. I'm working on turn 3 right now. That should be up next week, probably a week from today. And we'll see what happens. Everybody stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you next time.